Hi, this is Grant Fuhr, and you're listening to the Vibe 105.
Vibe Talks. Vibe Talks. More than just music.
Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo, Aulino, and Aaron Zaretsky reporting for Vibe 105 with a Black History Month exclusive. This month, we're happy to be showcasing some of the best Black athletes to achieve greatness in their respective sports, some coaches, some broadcasters. We're going to continue that today. We're happy to be joined by our guest. It's an honor to be joined by him. He is a 5-time Stanley Cup champion. He is a Hockey Hall of Famer. He's Grant Fuhr. Grant, how you doing?
I got no complaints, thanks. How about you guys?
Oh, doing great.
Doing good.
Yeah, just with COVID-19 and everything going on right now, how you been doing and how's your family been doing?
You know what? Everybody's good. I mean, it's unfortunate I can't zip back and forth across the border to see the kids, but other than that, everybody's doing well, and I'm loitering down here in California, so it's not too bad.
That's good to hear. And as Giancarlo mentioned, it's Black History Month. What does Black History Month mean to you?
I think it's a month where you're honoring contributions that are made by Black people. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to have a Black History Month. You wouldn't have to have separation. You'd be able to honor everybody equally. But right now, it's a great tribute to everybody.
And you're an athlete that has broken down barriers in your sport as a goaltender, achieving so much. And you've been a great role model for a lot of players that followed you. So when you were coming into the game and growing up into hockey, who are some of the role models or inspirations that helped you motivate you to become the player you were?
You know what? I was pretty lucky. I got to know Glenn Hall really well. Obviously, what Willie accomplished, Bill Riley, Mike Marson, Val James, Tony McKegney. I mean, those gentlemen had all come through the league before I had, so good role models to follow.
This is Aaron Zaretsky and Giancarlo Aulino with 5-time Stanley Cup champion and Hockey Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr. Grant, so currently in the NHL, with the COVID pandemic going on, there's a condensed schedule, 56 games. Teams are facing the same opponent 3 to 4 times consecutively. As a goalie, how would you feel playing the same team that amount of times in a row during the regular season?
You know what? It would be interesting. I mean, obviously, you get to know what they're trying to accomplish, and they get to know you. So it's a learning process all the time. But in a condensed schedule, I think that if you see a team 4 times, you're going to have a little bit of the upper hand, which, as a goalie, is a great thing. For
sure. And, for half of your career, a player that you didn't have to worry about facing against was Wayne Gretzky, as you were teammates with him during those legendary Edmonton Oilers teams in the 1980s. What was it like playing with Wayne Gretzky, and can you share a memorable moment or story with Wayne?
The great thing about playing with Wayne and a lot of our guys was they're the best players in the game at that time. So as a goalie, I learned from them. You see what they want to do every day in practice, and they want to score in practice. And I wanted to stop them. So we had a lot of fun with that, where there may have been a few days where you play for lunch, that sort of thing, but it became very competitive, and it made me a better goalie. And that was the fun of hanging around with those guys, is they made you a better athlete and a better player.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And also too, Grant, during that time, the goalie position, you were playing in some of your seasons over 70 games, well over that. You almost played the full season one year in Buffalo. So looking back on it now, the way the goaltending position has kind of shaped up, and you see guys maybe playing 50 games a year, do you regret it at all, playing that many games?
No, not at all. I love to play. And I think the biggest thing now, their coaches and such are a little more worried about load management, that sort of thing, whereas I didn't really care about load management. It's mind over matter. If your mind is fresh, you can play. Your body will adjust as the game gets going. So I think in a condensed schedule, it's a little bit tougher because you're playing, 56 games in 120 odd days. So it's a little bit tougher. But in a full schedule, I think a guy could play 65 or 70 games. You just have to manage the practice time, make sure his mind's fresh more than his body.
And also, yeah, you're talking about the mind and the body too, like being fresh. And a lot of guys, maybe like mental health has become something where everyone's looking after more and more. So like during that time, like how do you maintain just that level of confidence in yourself when all those games are high offensive teams coming after you, open play back then? So how did you maintain your mental health going into a long stretch?
Well, I think for me, the biggest rule was you can worry about the game till you go to sleep. When you get up the next day, it's a new day, it's fresh. There's nothing you can do about it. So you got to let it go and move on to the next game. And I found for me that I was able to play the next day without ever having to worry about it. I mean, yeah, you had some bad games, but you let the bad games go. If you had a good game, you let the good games go. You just started every day like it was a new day.
This is Aaron Zaretsky and Giancarlo Aulino with 5-time Stanley Cup champion, Hockey Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105. Grant, if you were currently playing the NHL, who is a guy or two that you would love to play with or face against?
Well, obviously, Connor McDavid would be a great guy to play with and to play against. I mean, I think that would be a lot of fun. Is you always want to take the top players. Be it Draisaitl, you've got Austin Matthews. Right? You'd love to play with the best offensive guys, but you'd also love to play against them. So that was kind of the fun I had in Edmonton. I had the best offensive guys maybe in the world at that time. So I get to practice with them every day, but I also got to play with them. So I kind of had the best of both worlds.
And as a goalie, would you be comfortable playing in front of no fans in the stands?
You know what? It's no different than when you were a kid. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of people in the stands when I was a kid playing. So I started playing outdoors where if it was cold, you didn't have anybody. So you just look back to what you did in your childhood. So it really wouldn't change things much for a goalie.
Understand for sure.
With Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105 with a Black History Month exclusive here. And Grant, like you're just talking about playing in front of no fans, and the outdoor games now have become something where over the weekend we saw what happened there, Colorado, in Vegas. Just going into the outdoor game, you played in a few yourself in 2003. What is it like, just the atmosphere playing outdoors, and just is that where I guess the NHL should steer towards having more outdoor games when I guess fans and the pandemic is over?
You know what? It was a lot of fun playing in the outdoor game. I mean, for us, it was a little bit fresh. I mean, we happened to play in the coldest ones. So we also got to play in front of 65,000 people, which I think is a blast.
Wow.
But at the same time, as a kid, I played outdoors when I was young. So it brings you back to your childhood, which I think is always exciting for the guys. I mean, some of the younger guys may have never played outdoors. So for them to experience that, I think is a great thing. And I think it's a great job that the NHL is doing with that.
And like, what's the difference, I guess, from playing outdoors? Like, is there something different with the ice, like your reaction time? Like, how do you still maintain that comfortable nature you have in an arena and outdoors where it's probably a little different for you?
You know what? The scenery is a little different, and you don't feel as enclosed. The ice isn't a whole lot different because they're still playing on artificial ice now. I mean, as a kid, you're playing on natural ice, so it's always a little bit different. But the ice is all pretty much the same nowadays. So it's not as enclosed, so it's a bigger space, and you just have to get used to that.
This is Aaron Zaretsky and Giancarlo with Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105. So during the 1980s, you, Gretzky, Mark Messier, dominating the NHL, winning Stanley Cups, like consistently dominant. And then all of a sudden, Wayne Gretzky gets traded. Did you think Gretzky would ever get traded?
No, I don't think anybody ever thought Wayne would get traded. I mean, I think that was a big shock to all of us that it would actually happen. But we also knew we still had a good hockey team. So for us to go out and win in 1990, I think made everybody feel pretty good about themselves. But we also knew that our time in Edmonton was coming to a close, because if you can trade Wayne, they're going to trade everybody. So we all knew we were moving somewhere at some time.
For sure. And aside from winning Stanley Cups, you were also a part of plenty of firsts, like historic firsts, being the first Black goalie in the NHL, being the first Black player to win a Stanley Cup, to win a Vezina Trophy for best goaltender, and the first to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Just looking back at those achievements and accomplishments, how does it feel to be a part of that? being something so special? Huh?
You know, they're always great accomplishments. And the fact that I happen to be the first is obviously very cool. But at the same time, it's a benefit of playing with good players and good teams. So am I the benefactor of that? Yeah, I am, definitely. But it also, I think, represents Willie and guys like that, where they laid all the groundwork. I'm just kind of the big benefactor of that.
With Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105, Sports VIBEtalks segment, Black History Month exclusive here. And Grant, just during that time, like you were mentioning there, that dynasty with the Oilers, during like nowadays when people talk about goalies, they keep on saying, okay, they're bigger, faster, stronger, they're a lot better athletes. But going back to your day, a lot of goaltenders from when you played are still viewed as being the greatest to ever play the position. So do you think when people talk about it nowadays, it kind of discredits the achievements of the goaltenders of when you played?
No, because it changes every generation. I mean, I look back at guys like Terry Sawchuk, Glenn Hall, and it doesn't discredit everything they accomplished. They played in an era before me. Then I played afterwards, and then you see what the guys are doing now. So generationally, it just keeps going, and it's hard to compare generation against generation. I mean, yeah, guys are bigger, faster, stronger now. I don't know about faster. We still think we can keep up with some of them fast-wise, but at the same time, it's a different generation. So it's hard to compare.
Yeah, and also like even it's hard to compare. And then when you just see the numbers you put up, like you put up 61 assists and points, and that's more than some forwards get in their entire career. So you did something right in that position at that time. And do you think that if you were playing in today's day, like with your team, the Oilers dynasty, we could see anything like that or something close to that in today's game?
I would love to have seen our team in today's game. I mean, you look at the goals we scored, the points we put up, when you could hook and hold and basically tackle guys. Now turn all those guys loose where you can't hook or hold them. So I think it would be a lot of fun, right? Our guys loved offensive hockey, so now you can turn them loose where you can't hook and hold them. They may have had more points.
Wow. Yeah, it would have been crazy to see that.
Oh, wow. Definitely, for sure. This is Aaron Zaretsky and Giancarlo Aulino with 5-time Stanley Cup champion and Hockey Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105. Grant, so currently in the NHL, there's these 4 different divisions, temporary alignments, but just looking at the goalies currently in the game, like which goalies, like I guess do you focus on, or like you look at like a Freddie Anderson of the Maple Leafs or Carey Price, like which goalies like reflect your kind of style back in the 80s? So.
Probably the closest thing to a hybrid they've got now is Carey Price. And he likes a heavy workload. I think that's the other thing is he's always had a heavy workload, likes to play a lot. I mean, obviously in a short condensed schedule, having Jake Allen there is going to make a big difference because they'll be able to rest him some nights. And with Freddie Anderson in Toronto, he's going to have to play a big workload. And it's just a lot of teams have that 2 goalie system. Some teams are still running on one guy. So some guys are going to end up with a heavier workload than others. And in a short schedule, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. And then with the playoffs coming up, be interesting to see what happens there, right? Because so many different things can change, and guys are getting tested for COVID, right, every single day. So it's like so up in the air, right? And
it is.
Everything.
The good teams are going to have 2 goalies because you're going to need 2 in a short season. I mean, you're basically playing games every second day. So there's not a whole lot of time for rest, and you got to worry about injury. I mean, that's the other thing when you're playing that many games in a short schedule is you got to worry about the bumps and the bruises. So in a goalie's perspective, it's probably better to have 2 that can play.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure. So that there's not a letdown, right? Because usually sometimes there's a discrepancy, right, between the starting goalie and the backup, and then it could be a letdown. So like if a team loses the first game, then chances are they might lose the second. So it's just consistency for sure.
But you know what it is? Teams will play different styles for different goalies. If a team has a lot of confidence in you, they're going to play a little more wide open, a little more offensive, where if they're not as confident, they may not take the chances that they normally would. So it changes the style of hockey that they play.
Did you experience in that during your playing days, like with Edmonton or a few other teams after that, where they would all of a sudden play different for you versus a different goalie?
No, we were lucky. We always had two good goalies everywhere I played. So our guys ran wide open all the time. I mean, that was the great thing about Edmonton is we played an offensive style. Your numbers weren't going to be pretty, but it was fun to watch and it was fun to play in.
Yeah, could only imagine.
Yeah, with Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105. I'm Giancarlo Aulino here with Aaron Zaretsky. And Grant, just even talking about that, like the wide open style and just the differences in the game. When you were coming into the game, like a lot of players talk about the coming to the league moment where you finally realize it's maybe a veteran that comes up to you and you're part of the game now. Like, welcome to the NHL. What was your welcome to the league moment?
I think just getting to play. I mean, being from Edmonton, born and raised, and getting the opportunity to put an Oiler jersey on, I think was pretty cool. And the fact that I managed to stay there my first year, do you ever really feel comfortable? Maybe after 10 years, you start to feel comfortable, but you're always trying to learn. You're always trying to get better. And Glenn say they're always brought in goalies. So we'd always have 8 or 10 guys at camp where if you weren't good, you had a chance of losing your job. So it pushed you to be better every year.
Wow. And like even your career, just like all the goaltending positions you've had, like as a starter and then maybe even as a backup in your later years in the league there on, like, what would you say about hockey culture? Because obviously, like a lot of guys now, like black players, they have come up, they've spoken out. We even saw when the return to play happened, Matt Dumba spoke out and Evander Kane, they were all united on this. So do you think the NHL has become a place where it is more inclusive, or do you think they still need to improve on that?
Well, I think the NHL is becoming more and more inclusive. I think there's still a lot of work that can be done. But at the same time, a lot of it has to be done at the grassroots level where you got to make hockey acceptable for everybody. So whether it's the NHL reaching out and making it more affordable for youth and players doing different camps, that sort of thing, it's getting better, but there's always work you can do.
With 5-time Stanley Cup champion and Hockey Hall of Famer Grant Fuhr here on Vibe 105. So this past year has been a very difficult year with the COVID-19 pandemic going on. But what have you been up to recently? Because you've been retired for quite some time now. So what have you been up to recently? Like, and second question is, do you see yourself getting into coaching in some capacity?
You know what? I'll answer the second question first. I would love to get back into the game again. I mean, that's something that I still love hockey. I still enjoy hockey. So yeah, at some point I would love to get back into the game again. As for the last, 7, 8 years, I travel around to different events and help raise money for charity. My wife and I traveled 145, 150 days a year to different events to help make a difference. And that's kind of been what I've been up to for the last little while and something that I really enjoy.
Wow, that's very cool. Very cool for sure.
Yeah, and just even coaching, like a lot of players, maybe they want to get into general manager or president position. What makes, like, I guess some of the players that go into coaching, what gives them that better idea or makes them a good coach in your opinion?
Well, I think you have to understand the game for one, and two, you've got to understand players. I mean, I think it's different from when I played to players now. I mean, now you've got to understand personalities. You got to figure out what makes a guy tick. Some guys you could yell at, some guys you can't yell at. Whereas back when I started, it was old school hockey. Coaches had no problem yelling and screaming and made something that wouldn't be acceptable now was fine back then. So you've got to adjust with the generations. And the bottom line is finding a common denominator for all your players to perform at their best.
And like, who's someone from your generation of playing, or even on your Oilers team, where if they were to become a head coach, they would be the perfect role for that? They would be excelling at that.
But you look at a lot of our guys. Mess would be a perfect example. Gretz was a good head coach. So Paul Coffey would be a good head coach. I mean, I was lucky enough when I was in Phoenix coaching, we had Alfie Samuelson and Rick Tocchet. They both turned into great head coaches. So it's the guys that understand players and understand the game end up being good coaches.
Yeah, For sure. And do you think like a guy like Tortorella, like he gets a bad rap at times for being, I guess, open. He's an open book. Everyone knows what they're going to get when they sign on with Columbus or after, even earlier in his career, wherever he was. Like, do you think that's something where as time goes on, we might see less of, or do you think it's refreshing to see that in today's game?
I actually love it. I played for Torts in Buffalo. He was there with John Muckler. So I know from firsthand what Torts can be like. And the old school player enjoys a coach like that because there's no gray area. It is or it isn't. It's that simple. And if you understand that, he's an easy guy to play for. And if you play bad, yeah, you're going to get yelled at. If you play good, he'll give you a pat on the back. So I really enjoy playing for him.
Here with Grant Fuhr on Vibe 105. Just before we wrap things up here, how can listeners follow you on social media just to keep in touch with you?
What am I at? I'm at Grant Fuhr on Twitter. I'm at Grant Fuhr 31 on Instagram. Grant Fuhr 31 on Facebook. I think that's my fan page. So yeah, I'm very findable. So.
Oh, that's good. And I just want to ask you, do you still keep in touch with like guys like Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Paul Coffey, guys that you played with?
I do. I mean, we're still just like one big happy family. You may not see somebody for 4 or 5 months, but it's like having a sibling that lives far away. We're still all good friends. We're all close. So it's a great friendship that we still have.
Oh, that's wonderful. Like one big family, huh?
It's one big happy family. Was when I was 18. It still is now at 58.
Oh, that's tremendous. Tremendous. Giancarlo?
Yeah, well, Grant, really appreciate you sharing your time and coming on here on Vibe 105 for this Black History Month exclusive. And we wish you all the best. And anytime you want to come back and promote anything with your charities, we'd be more than happy to have you on. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Guys, have a good day.
And now back to your Vibe 105.